How do you decipher what's going on both sides at the moment?
Well, certainly, as we've seen the tensions escalate over the past weeks and months, really, we are reaching this sort of fever pitch stage, and really, we are at a pinnacle of the crisis. We've heard, obviously, from the U.S. President Biden that the intelligence community has now basically come to a conclusion that Vladimir Putin has decided to launch an invasion into Ukraine. Now, the question is whether Vladimir Putin will follow up on this and make this promise true, or whether we are going to see some sort of last-minute diplomatic turnaround. But obviously, the situation on the ground is very grim. We have to understand that already we have seen the escalation in terms of the military ramp up, as well as exchange of fire in the east of Ukraine, in the Donbas region, and certainly all of the kind of signs of the Russian buildup of troops around Ukrainian borders are pointing to further deterioration of the security over there.
The diplomatic efforts continue, of course, going into this week. Can they make any difference at this point?
Well, we can certainly hope that some of these talks that have been announced and alluded to, primarily the talks between the U.S. Secretary of State Blinken and his Russian counterpart Lavrov, are going to at least, again, keep the JoJo as it were, rather than the war situation. And obviously, there are other efforts on part of various European states and major powers there. But clearly, what we are seeing at this point is that the various diplomatic efforts haven't really managed to get through to any sort of breakthrough, as much as they have been mostly for venting out the various grievances, particularly on Russia's front and on their part, and certainly when it comes to the current security architecture in Europe, as well as the long-standing issues Russia has had with alliances such as NATO, with U.S. standing in the world, and similar.
Grana, give us some context into this information warfare between the two sides, whether troops are there or pulling back, and who is doing it better at this point?
Well, what we have seen, what has been really interesting, has been a change of tack on part of the U.S. administration and really European partners and allies as well, to expose basically what has been Russian modus operandi. We haven't seen this in previous instances. We've seen a lot of these details in terms of intelligence reports really kept obviously at the highest levels of government and to those that are privy to such information. But what we have seen on Russia's part has certainly been a concerted effort over the past months, really, to try to depict this sort of picture on the ground, where essentially there is a lot of disinformation over what is going on in Donbas. And, we've seen some of these reports around mass graves being found, about accusations of mass atrocities, crimes against humanity, and similar, so much so that Russia has actually put together a report for the United Nations and for the Security Council to discuss this. And all of the evidence that we have heard so far are contradictory to actually the intelligence that we are seeing that's being corroborated by the U.S. or European agencies.
So how does cyber warfare fit into this broader rivalry between the two sides, especially given the reports last week of a cyber attack on Ukraine and potentially an allied response?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is all part of the hybrid warfare efforts that, again, have been part and parcel of this conflict that, again, we have to be reminded that it has gone on for the past 8 years, since 2014. And obviously, what triggered it was the Euromaidan revolution in Ukraine. So this is nothing new. This is, again, part of the kind of operations that Russia and its clients in east of Ukraine have been waging. And again, this information warfare is also part of that hybrid warfare. So on the cyber front, what we are seeing is, again, very much a kind of, if we could call it, a textbook sort of play, where critical infrastructure, or, you know, the various agencies of the government ministries are targeted, again, in an effort to either sow confusion or to actually debilitate the critical parts of the government and prevent them from proper functioning.